This is a video on the start of my favorite horror series of all time, Fatal Frame. We'll be going through all of the different aspects of the first game of the series, so sit back and enjoy the video. Fatal Frame, also known as Zero in Japan or Project Zero in Europe, was developed and published by Tecmo. It was released on December 13, 2001 in Japan, and March 4, 2002 in North America. It came out on the PS2 and later on the original Xbox with more content. It received positive reviews upon release from gaming sites such as Eurogamer, who gave it a 9 out of 10, and IGN, who gave it a 7 out of 10. The gameplay of Fatal Frame revolves around fighting ghosts with a camera, collecting upgrades for your camera, puzzle solving, and resource management. It shared similarities to previous survival horror games such as Resident Evil and Silent Hill. However, Fatal Frame's unique mechanics and story set it apart. But before I talk about the different aspects of the game, first we need to talk about the story. Spoilers up ahead, so if you don't want the game to be spoiled, skip ahead. The story is set in 1986 on September 24th. The chapter starts from the perspective of Mafuyu Hinasaki, in a flashback when he arrives at Himuro Mansion to search for a famous writer and friend of his, Junsei Takamine, along with his assistants.
The forbidden rituals of this area.
As Mafuyu is exploring the mansion, he finds a notebook belonging to Mr. Takamine, which gives him a flashback of Mr. Takamine and his friends running from hands arising out of the walls, until it ends with a woman in the mirror. After the flashback, Mafuyu encounters the first ghost of the game. Using the camera obscure, Mafuyu captures the ghost. After capturing the ghost, Mafuyu attempts to leave the mansion. But before he can leave, he is stopped by the same ghost he saw in the flashback, the woman in the white kimono.
It's been 2 weeks since I last heard from my brother. Me here.
Afterwards, the game switches to Miku's perspective and transitions to the start of night number 1. It has been 2 weeks since Mafuyu's disappearance. Miku decides to go to Himuro Mansion in search of her brother. During her time in the mansion, Miku sees various apparitions of her missing brother, leading her towards solving the mystery of the mansion. Eventually, Miku learns that the Himuro Mansion was the site of many horrific rituals, the main one being the strangling ritual.
Stop.
Designed to keep the Hellgate located beneath the mansion closed and protect the region from harm. The ritual required a woman within the family to become the Rope Shrine Maiden, who was selected and hidden away for 10 years with little contact with anyone, so she would have no attachments to the world. Beneath the mansion is an expansive cavern where the final acts of the ritual are carried out. The Rope Shrine Maiden is purified and taken to a large stone pedestal, where 5 ropes are tied to her limbs and neck. The ropes are connected to 5 pillars, symbolizing the 5 head families of the surrounding region, These pillars are turned, causing the maiden great pain, until her limbs are torn from her body. The ropes stained by the sacred blood of the sacred maiden are then used to tie the doors of the Hell Gate closed, thus preventing the malice within from escaping and causing catastrophe. The ritual failed, however, and the disaster known as the Calamity occurred when the last rope shrine maiden, Kiri Himuro, failed to sever her attachments to the world. While she was isolated within the mansion, Kiri met and fell in love with a man who stayed at the mansion and bore a striking resemblance to Mafuyu. The Himuro family began to fear her growing attachment, and after confining her to her room, the family master ordered the man to be killed. Kiri learned of his death before the final moments of the ritual, and her regrets caused the ritual to fail. The malice poured forth from the gate, killing most within the mansion and driving the rest mad. The malice attached itself to the spirit of Kiri, twisting her into a vengeful ghost bent on making others experience the pain and misery she went through. Apart from the ghost of the rope shrine maiden, there was the spirit of a girl in a white kimono who guided Miku along her investigation. This was the embodiment of Kiri's innocent self, tied to her sacred duty as a rope shrine maiden. Ever since the malice erupted from the Hell Gate, the mansion had been trapped in darkness, and the souls of all who perished inside were unable to rest. Junsei Takamine and his assistants Koji Ogata and Tomei Hirasaka were caught in the darkness upon setting foot inside, and they fell to Kiri's wrath. They were cursed with the same gruesome fate that befell the rope shrine maiden and became violent ghosts themselves. When Mafuyu entered the mansion, he became trapped as well, but because he resembled Kiri's lover, he was allowed to live. After being trapped inside the Himuro grounds, Miku nearly fell to the curse of the strangling ropes, but on the fourth night she took the final path of the rope shrine maiden and found Mafuyu before the Hell Gate. They called out to each other, but before Mafuyu could reach out to Miku, Kiri pulled him back, saying, "We will always be together."
Miku.
We will always be together.
Miku used the powers of the camera obscura to exorcise Kiri's ghost, but she was overpowered and the camera was thrown to the ground and broken. Before succumbing to the malicious ghost, Miku saw the girl in the white kimono point towards the broken camera. She was really pointing at the shining fragment that came from within the camera, the final piece of the holy mirror, which Miku could use as a last resort against the malice. Miku had uncovered all of the other pieces while searching the mansion, and after assembling them, she was able to banish the evil that possessed Kiri, freeing her spirit and Mafuyu from the malice.
Mafuyu, thank goodness.
There are 3 possible ending scenes that play after completing the game. The first scene is unlocked by simply completing the game on normal mode, while the second scene is only available after beating the game in nightmare mode. The third ending can be obtained on the Xbox release by completing the game on fatal mode. Alright, so this is ending number 1. You get this ending for beating the game on normal mode or easy mode. The main difference between the endings is whether or not Mafuyu survives, and then the third ending, Fatal, has some extra stuff as well. I'm just going to let this ending play out, then I'll show the second and third.
Don't forget your duty. My duty is to keep this gate closed. Leave this gate to me. The rest of you, hurry and escape.
But what about you?
I must stop the calamity, or else it will happen again. Don't worry about me. You must go. Matthew, come on!
Miku, I must stay.
What are you saying?
I think I can help her. Miku, you go on without me. Miku. The whole time Kirie was guiding me, I could hear her screaming. Screaming for help. As the Rope Shrine Maiden, she was destined to seal the gate. Yet she also wanted to be with the one she loved. But she couldn't have both, and was being torn apart by those two feelings, which resulted in the calamity. Her spirit was touched by the malice, and she became a creature that wanted to make others suffer as she had. Now free of the malice, she is about to fulfill her duty as the Rope Shrine Maiden. Her soul must remain here, keeping this gate sealed off for all eternity. All alone. Endless pain. As long as she is free of pain, as long as she is not left hopeless, I wish to be by her side. Miku.
Matthew. Look, their souls are all going back to where they belong.
Miku. I now realize why I was brought here. And I will accept this destiny of mine. Miku. Thank you for everything.
Ever since that day, I stopped seeing things that other people.
Alright, so moving on to ending number 2. This ending is unlocked after beating the game on Nightmare difficulty. Mafuyu in this ending survives and decides to go with Miku.
Their souls are all going back to where they belong.
Kiria. She was always struggling for life. Her soul must remain there, keeping the gates sealed off for all eternity. She had to sacrifice everything. These souls may rest in peace, but her soul will always suffer, forever and ever.
Ever since that day, we stopped seeing things that other people don't see.
Next up is a third ending that's exclusive to the original Xbox version of the game. You get it for beating the difficulty mode Fatal, which is also exclusive to the Xbox version. In this ending, Kiri reunites with her lost lover, and Mafuyu survives as well. Unfortunately, there's no actual CGI cutscene, so it's just shown through a slideshow of photos. Now that we've covered the story, I'm going to give my thoughts about it. I think the story is great. The main mystery centers around the ritual and how it failed. The game keeps you invested in the mystery by slowly dropping hints through notes and journals found throughout the mansion, until you eventually find out the dark truth of the Muro family. The mystery is well executed and it kept me wanting to find more info. Kiri's story was tragic and disturbing. The ritual especially was just brutal.
My duty is to keep this gate
The ending was solid too. I prefer the normal ending, which is also the canon one. Even though you lose Mafuyu, it feels more fitting for the game. Now, moving on to the characters. They weren't really developed at all. Miku's personality was little more than a scared girl during the game, and Mafuyu literally has no personality. It works perfectly fine for the story the game wants to tell, so it's okay.
Like he was going far away.
My plot overview also glosses over parts of the story that were not vital to the main plot, like the demon tag ritual, the blind woman, the side plot with Miku's family having a connection to the mansion, and some other additional info. These parts of the story are some of the scariest parts of the game though, and the lore surrounding them is fascinating.
I came to research.
Another notable side plot I didn't talk about was the folklorist and his family, who came to the mansion after the massacre had occurred. This subplot was well done, and the puzzles surrounding it were also great. I'll talk about more of the puzzles in the gameplay section, but I thought this subplot was pretty good. The subplot with the blind woman was also notable. Encountering a ghost in night number 2 is one of the scariest parts of the game, hands down. You encounter a ghost a couple of times throughout night number 2, until you eventually see a flashback of her getting her eyes taken out. The flashback is one of the most disturbing cutscenes of the game as well.
What's that?
Moving on to the atmosphere of the game. I think the atmosphere is amazing. It is both oppressing and dark. This is because of how the game makes you feel hopeless while playing as Miku, and navigating through the mansion's many corridors while fighting off the ghosts. Some parts of the game are genuinely terrifying, and there's a certain sense of dread while exploring and looking around, as well as the environment of the mansion being downright creepy, with many strange ritual rooms, shrines, and not to forget a giant gate of hell. Finding the various notes and journals in the mansion that give you more lore and hints about what happened is awesome, and it was fun piecing together the story. Some of the notes and journals were very creepy, and it made you cautious of what was coming next. This game also has some of the strongest ghost designs in this whole series in my opinion. One of the designs I think is the best is the ghost with the extended arms from the first night. This scene also scared me the first time I played the game. The encounters with the ghosts in general are well executed. Another example is a woman falling off the balcony during the first night, or when the first rope maiden arises out of the well. It's one of the things that makes the game scary. Moving on, I want to talk a bit about the cutscenes in the game. The cutscenes add a lot to the game's atmosphere. They set the mood for the game, and are both creepy and disturbing in tone and content. The cutscene where Kiri is being pulled apart, or when the woman is blinded, are examples of this. These cutscenes also set up some of the scariest parts of the game, and they're often very short and grim. Some of the cutscenes are entirely black and white too, which was an interesting aesthetic choice.
They're exactly the same as the ones Mom took.
The game's story and setting is heavily inspired by Japanese folklore, rituals, and even Japanese horror films, which is awesome since I was a big fan of Japanese horror movies like Ju-on the Grudge. That is, in my opinion, the best horror movie ever made. Screw the English version, it didn't do it justice. But back on topic, the Japanese settings and influence are a big part of the series' core identity. It is a big reason why the series is so unique as well, and stands out among other survival horror games. We will explore some of the specific real-world influences on the game in a later segment of the video. The game being set in the 80s was an interesting choice as well, but it doesn't really affect anything outside of there not being any cell phone. Now we're on to the meat and the bones of the game, the gameplay, which centers around the camera obscura, finding resources, and progressing through the mansion. First, let's talk about the camera obscura. You use it for three purposes: killing ghosts, aka combat, puzzles, which trust there's some bullshit ones, and getting spirit points. The combat revolves around using your camera to take a picture of the ghost when the circle is blue, and if you time it right during the ghost's attack animation, the circle will flash orange, and you will get a fatal frame, doing significantly more damage. The camera obscura can be charged to deal more damage by keeping your cursor focused on the ghost. If you combine this with a fatal frame, you will tear through most ghosts. Along with fatal frames, there are also zero shots, which you get when you keep your cursor in the circle on the ghost's head while taking a shot. This deals more damage, but not as much as a fatal frame. There are more shots as well, like the double shot and the close shot, which depend on how many ghosts and how close you are. These shots all give you more points while fighting the ghosts as well. Miku can also quick turn and move the cursor faster while in camera mode. You get points for defeating ghosts to upgrade your camera and to unlock new bonus functions. Bonus functions allow you to freeze ghosts, slow them, push them, and more. These bonus functions allow you to get more types of shots as well, such as a bind shot, which is when you paralyze and take a photo. This of course awards more points too. There are also special functions only available in multiple playthroughs. However, some of these bonus functions aren't always the best investments, and you'd be better off upgrading the camera than exclusively focusing on power-ups. The special functions you unlock after beating the game are great, but some of them require things to unlock them, like completing the spirit list or mission mode with all S ranks. The special functions are overpowered though, so it's worth it. The camera has 3 types of main upgrades aside from the bonus and special functions. They are range, speed, and max value. These upgrades make the camera more powerful and easier to use, so they are must-haves. Especially max value, since it increases how much spirit power you can charge for shots, which boosts damage. You can also find various types of film to load the camera with. It's basically your ammo for the camera, and there's 4 types: Type 14, Type 37, Type 72, and Type 90. Type 14 is the most common, while Type 90 is very rare. Type 37 and Type 72 pop up occasionally. Type 14 isn't bad, but for Night 3 when harder ghosts start appearing, it's better to have higher films. Type 72 and Type 90 are very good, so save those until you need it. On the topic of film, a problem the game has is not being able to switch film or bonus functions during combat like later games. This is annoying, and during combat you're going to have to go into the menu and switch it out, which messes with the flow of combat. But combat still feels really satisfying, especially when you're able to land a fatal frame or get a 0 shot, and the game still feels smooth to control. It does not show its age at all. The combat also has a lot of depth, with the different types of shots and the various abilities you can experiment with. It's also a unique combat system and is very well done. I was playing on original hardware. I have heard that playing on emulators makes it harder to get fatal frames due to delays, but on PS2 it was not too difficult. There's certain strategies you have to use for some ghosts, and sometimes you have to get out of camera mode to run from the ghost attacks. You also have to get used to walking with the right thumbstick in camera mode. It's slow, but you're going to need it with how much these ghosts move. Sometimes this is frustrating, but once you get used to it, the game gets easier. Parts of the game are very difficult at times, and the game has a big difficulty spike after Night 2. Some of the ghosts are hard to hit since they constantly move and disappear. All of the ghosts have different patterns as well. Fatal frames are hard to hit on these ghosts too, since they are constantly moving, because you must wait for their attack animation. But you don't need to get fatal frames to beat ghosts. You can hit the ghost whenever the cursor is blue. You just miss out on points and spend more resources, which is not ideal. On later nights, fighting without getting fatal frames gets way more difficult though, so definitely try to get them. The only way to beat the final boss is to get fatal frames as well, since normal shots don't do shit. Another thing about combat is sometimes you will encounter a ghost in a cramped area, which is a pain in the ass since it makes it hard to dodge, and if you get a hard ghost in these areas, it's going to be a struggle to kill it. The battle mode level where you fight the family master in a cramped area is an example of this. Overall, I think the combat in Fatal Frame is awesome, and I've never seen another combat system like it in any other game. Like I said before, I think it still holds up as well. It doesn't feel aged to me, and the upgrades plus the enemy variety really spices it up. Additionally, the combat gets way easier if you decide to do multiple playthroughs, since your camera upgrades carry over, same with your inventory. So if you are a completionist, this game has plenty for you to do. The camera fully upgraded makes the game a cakewalk, and it unlocks a lot of dope features for obliterating ghosts. We'll talk more about those when we get to the unlockable segment of the video. Next part of the gameplay and the second use of the camera is puzzles. I am not the biggest puzzle fan, but for the most part I like the ones in Fatal Frame. The camera is used to take pictures of areas that have spirit energy, then they give you clues about where to go and what to look for. Most puzzles work like this, for example. There's these door puzzles where there's a seal on the door. You take a photo of it and it shows you a location to go to, where you have to take a photo of a spirit there to break the seal. It's also used for guiding players towards certain items for puzzles. The other types of puzzles are the sliding stone doors, and the doors where you have to enter a specific date, which I hate since it's all in Japanese letters, and it's really tedious to figure out what to do without a guide. Otherwise, the puzzles were great and weren't too hard to where you couldn't solve them without a guide. There are also some unique puzzles which tie into the rituals of the mansion that are great, like the puzzle where you must tie ropes around the limbs of the correct statues to unlock a cabinet. These puzzles were good and well done. Now moving on to the third function of the camera, which is getting points. There are 3 types of ghosts: hostile, vanishing, and hidden. The enemies you fight are the hostile types, which we already talked about. You fight them for points and you get more depending on how good your shots are while fighting them. While the vanishing ghosts are apparitions that you can take photos of before they disappear for points. You will see these throughout the game, and some of them lead you to important places and items. Some vanishing ghosts are hard to get though, and you only have one chance to get them unless you want to reload a save, which is annoying. The third types are hidden ghosts, which are hidden in certain areas you must find by using your spirit detector and taking a photo of the area where your cursor is blue to reveal where the ghost is for points. These are out of the way, but it's pretty fun trying to find them throughout the mansion. These ghosts change each night as well. You also unlock a ghost list after beating the game, which allows you to see all the ghosts you take photos of, and tells you the ones you missed. It also gives lore about the ghosts, and there's a special function you get for completing it, which is great. But I wish it was available from the start of the game. The movement feels very similar to Resident Evil's tank controls. In addition to walking, you can also sprint, which helps since walking is a bit slow. Otherwise, the movement is solid, and once you get used to it, it feels very smooth, so no complaints here. And like most survival horror games, this game also has resource management, which is mainly conserving film and healing items like medicinal herbs and sacred waters. You also have to collect spirit orbs to be able to upgrade your camera, so it's important to look out for those as well. You also need to search every room for these supplies since you are going to need them, and on certain nights, if you don't have enough supplies, the game gets very difficult. The game hands out an adequate amount of these items on normal difficulty though, if you look for them, and the save points allow you to reload up to 3014 type films, which helps a lot. The resource management in this game is well done and it works well. There's some other minor features like being able to save photos you take to the memory card, which don't add much, so I won't talk about them much. The gameplay overall is great. The combat has depth, the puzzles are good, not too hard but not too easy, and the game feels smooth to play to this day. The upgrade system is awesome as well. Earning points, upgrading the camera, and unlocking abilities feels good. The puzzles were well done, and were creative uses of the camera. So moving on, I want to talk about battle mode, which is unlocked along with the spirit list after beating the game. There are 20 different battles you can do, and these just take ghosts and areas from the game and make you battle while keeping score. Every battle awards some spirit points, and once you complete all the battles, you unlock the special functions Sense and Nightmare difficulty for the main game. Some of the missions are brutal, especially when they put you in a cramped area against hard ghosts, like the mission with the Family Master. It can be frustrating, but if you want to unlock everything the game has, you got to do it. This also serves as good training for Nightmare difficulty, which reduces the items you get and makes the ghost harder if you're wanting a challenge. There's also an additional special function, which you get for getting S rank on every battle, which is very difficult. Luckily, your camera and the upgrades it has carries over, and you can spend points earned from battles to upgrade. You can also carry over all your upgrades when doing a second playthrough, which makes normal mode a breeze and nightmare mode easy if you get the 0 special function from completing the spirit list. Overall, battle mode is a fun bit of side content, and you can get some awesome rewards for doing it. This is also great for completionists. Moving on, I want to talk about the unlockables you can get from the game. So there are a lot of awesome unlockables for Fatal Frame 1 that have various requirements to get. Battle mode and the ghost list, which we already discussed before, are unlocked after completing the game for the first time. along with the first special function, sound test menu, and the first costume for Miku. The special functions are abilities for the camera only available after beating the game, or fulfilling specific requirements, like completing the spirit list. Most of these are overpowered and are great rewards for hardcore players. Upon beating the game, you get access to the first of 5 special functions. You can use zoom. This allows you to adjust the zoom of the camera, and gives you a lot more range. It helps a lot in cramped areas. Too bad it's only available after beating the game once. Completing mission mode gives you sense, which allows you to see the direction of the ghost. It's alright, but zoom is better. Completing mission mode with all S ranks gives you chase, an upgraded version of sense which automatically chases after ghosts with the cursor. This is broken, but getting all S ranks is a huge pain in the ass, and nearly impossible without completing the spirit list first for Zero. Zero is unlocked after completing the spirit list, and gives you full spirit energy during shots. This makes every shot you take be a fully charged shot, which is overpowered and makes Nightmare difficulty easy. The final special function is None, which is unlocked after completing the game on Nightmare difficulty in 4 hours or less. This allows you to take shots that don't consume film, which is pretty good. The costumes are selectable after beating the game, and they're okay, not that great, but it's better than having no costumes, I guess. Beating the game once unlocks the first costume, completing the game on Nightmare mode gives you the second costume, and completing Nightmare mode in 4 hours or less gives you the third costume. These are cool rewards for completionists, and I like them being in the game. Completing Nightmare mode also unlocks chapter select for the game as well, which I wish was unlocked after beating normal mode. Beating Nightmare mode also gives you the Mafuyu ending. This is all the unlockables for the PS2 version. The Xbox original version had more unlockables and changes that we will get into in the next segment. Moving on to the Xbox original differences. The Xbox original version released after the PS2 version, and included many changes like a new ending, which we discussed, and a new difficulty, Fatal. The appearance of the camera's cursor was also changed, and more diaries, hidden ghosts, and unlockables were added. There was also a battle with a brand new ghost during the final night added, which was optional. This makes the version superior, and the only reason I didn't play it was because I don't own an original Xbox. The extra content would have been awesome to experience though, and if I ever want to 100% the game, I will get an OG Xbox with a copy. The unlockables added were 4 new costumes and a gallery mode. The 4 costumes are alright, I don't really care about them though. The requirements for unlockables were also changed, but you can look into that for yourself if you're interested. Now, the new difficulty Fatal is a nice addition for completionists or hardcore players, but otherwise it's just Nightmare difficulty but harder. That's it for the original Xbox differences. Now I wanted to address the marketing scheme the game has about being based on a true story. The game in North American regions was released with the tagline based on a true story. This is due to the game supposedly being based on the true story and legend surrounding Himuro Mansion in Japan. The mansion was rumored to be the gruesome death site of a Japanese family and several of its associates a few decades ago. But the series producer, Makoto Shibata, said the game was based on 2 old Japanese urban legends and ghost stories, and didn't mention the Himuro Mansion murders at all. So this was most likely a marketing scheme with no truth to it. Now moving on to my overall thoughts and score about the game. I love the game. I think it was a perfect start for the series, and the game feels great to play to this day. The combat has depth and is satisfying regardless of some of its issues. And the game is genuinely terrifying at times. The story was great and I like the Japanese theme and setting. It can get difficult at times, but with proper searching and good tactics, it's manageable. My personal score is 8.5 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for my next video on my personal favorite of the series, Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly.